Salam alaikum, Sharif. Um, the reason I didn't make my coffee before I go live is because this decaf takes 10 minutes to percolate. So I might as well let it percolate while I am streaming. Um, I don't really have anything to talk about today, but I think I will play this song again because I really like it and it's not going to get copyright struck. You understand I'm going to bed in like 30 minutes. I don't really like decaf, but it's that or I don't get to have a cup of coffee before I go to bed. So I work from 3:45 till X. On Monday mornings I start at 2:15. So, yeah. Out of Sizzler. Bender. Started June, ended in September. Bender. Oh shit, I hate that that's me. Fuck Tel Aviv. When I say I want to kill myself, I am not fucking around. Witness, but addiction still killed Prince. Still draining. There's a Holy Fawn album called that actually. You are going to have many realizations about life and death and existence over high school and college and your adulthood. So it'd be nice to feel like you got it figured out now. If that helps you, that's great. You will probably have other realizations as you get older. Some you may come back to what you're feeling now. Some may change the way you're feeling. It's just kind of how it goes as your brain grows, as you get used to living, you know. Yeah, anyway, shout out FD Signifier for putting me onto this. Obviously, he didn't text me. But Infinity Knives, I like it. Kind of an older, like late 90s, early 2000s beat, I would say. But anyway, Infinity Knives. So, big plans for Christmas. Let me switch my scene up here. And then, there we go. Look, now I'm big. I had to put a clear coat on my nails. Kind of pointless because I'm working with my hands. But it is a lot. I would argue it's close to as many as you could have. This is Bethany's last day of school for the semester, so she's happy to be almost done. I'm also happy for her to be almost done. The first semester at a new school is always rough, and she has a couple of classes that are really unkind to her. So she's ready to be done with the little bastards for a couple weeks. We have not decided yet what's going to happen for Christmas. Don't know if she's going home or not. I'm not. So I may be here by myself. If I'm here by myself over Christmas, I will probably stream again. Like maybe Christmas Eve. Cuz I'll be off Christmas Day, and I get off Christmas Eve in the morning. Right, so I'll have all day, Christmas Eve and Christmas. So I might stream. I don't know. It is the Christmas season I enjoy. You know, it's nice to go to, like, I like going to the mall. Now, I mean, we have a mall to go to for the first time in 4-5 years. But like, I like going to the mall around Christmas and seeing the energy, right? Seeing all of the people who are like getting stuff. Because around Christmas, people at the mall are there with a purpose. They're shopping, you know, they're looking for stuff. They're not just like wandering around browsing. They're trying to get stuff done. So there's a different energy. And it makes me think of my childhood. You know, it reminds me of when I was a kid and we'd go to the mall around Christmas. Everything is that soft yellow light, you know, and then you've got all the Christmas lights all around. So I enjoy that. But Christmas itself is not a big deal to me at this point, really, in my life. Like, it's nice to get things, but I'm not very good at asking for them. And I'm not very good at displaying gratitude when I get them. Right? I don't know. I just have always felt like I don't give enough of a reaction when I get something, even something that I like. I'm just not that good at big reactions. For those of you who have ever watched my reaction videos, you would understand that I am not a big over the top guy. So, you know, I always feel uncomfortable when I get stuff because I feel like I'm not going to give the person who gave it to me an appropriate level of excitement, which sucks, right? Because a lot of times people are excited to give you stuff that they like, that they know you will like. Like Bethany got me a camera for my birthday, and I know she was excited to give it to me, and she knows me at this point. We've been together since before COVID, so she has a pretty good understanding of my personality at this point. But like, you know, I really was happy to get that. That's something I wanted. I was excited, and I still, you know. So anyway, and I'm a man, right? And I'm in the same spot as my dad has been my whole life, which is like, well, what do you get him? You know, give me a gift card or a Mercedes, you know, somewhere in there. Gift card for coffee or a brand new, you know, SLK. Because those are both not things I'll buy myself. I'll buy coffee myself, but I'm not going to buy me a gift card to a different coffee place. So, you know, that's useful. But if you are somebody who likes to give gifts, that's not very helpful. You know, a lot of people hate giving gift cards because it's impersonal. And I get it. It is sort of impersonal. But if your thought is, I don't know exactly which, say, coffee bean variety you want to get or you've been thinking about trying, here's a gift card to a roaster that I know you like, and then you can make that decision yourself when you need coffee, because I'll be a little bit, nerdy here, but like coffee gets stale. So if you buy me coffee, but I've already got 2 or 3 bags on deck, then there's a chance that coffee's going to get stale and it's going to be not as good as it could have been if I bought it when I needed it. Anyway, it's not important, but I just, I like the atmosphere. I like the lights. I like the memories of the Christmas, when I was a kid. But I was raised really Christian, like really, really Christian. And so we weren't taught to really like lean into the greed side of Christmas. And so it's never been that, I always like, I hope somebody gets me something that I really want. But I'm not gonna try and make it happen, right? I'm not really dropping hints. Um, so as I get older, and it's like I can just buy this for myself if I want it. I want a new thing. I'll go get it. You know, currently working on acquiring a snowboard, which will be great once I have it. But that's just something I'm gonna get myself. My coffee is finally done draining. So, my parents have talked about coming out here on Christmas, which would be nice. I like my parents, and it would be nice to have them here. Um, but I don't like. I don't want them to come out here just so I won't be by myself on Christmas, because it's not that big a deal, and like I can't imagine flights, even to a major hub, right, which Denver is. I can't imagine that those are super cheap, like a week away from Christmas. So I don't want them to feel like, well, if we don't go out there, he'll be all by himself on Christmas. It's fine. Because my sister's still in Arkansas. My sister and her husband are still down there. So, like, they'll be around for Christmas. But this year, working at UPS, I think maybe when you have seniority, maybe you can get the day off. Maybe you can request the time off. But, like, you work Christmas Eve, you're off Christmas Day, but you work the morning of the 26th. Right, so the morning after Christmas. So I could technically fly home and back, but it'd be a very tight turnaround, and there's no guarantee that the weather or travel conditions would cooperate. Right? There's a storm in Chicago, and so the plane that was in O'Hare that's supposed to be going to Little Rock or Memphis to go to Denver is delayed, and then you miss your flight. Right? Like that's kind of how it is over the holidays. So it doesn't really make any sense to try to make that happen. And I don't want them to just feel like, well, we need to make sure there's someone there with him on Christmas, because if there's nobody with me on Christmas, I'll get up, I'll take an edible, take a shower, have some coffee, probably play some Baldur's Gate. Like, it's just a good day off. But Bethany may also be here because I'm not gonna get very much into it, but being home has become less and less relaxing with each passing year. And not to pat myself on the back, okay, but being there without the buffer of me is less pleasant, because I can take some of the attention. I can take some of the tension in the air. I'm pretty good at being a calming presence and a mediator. I just am good at that. I am the autism whisperer, and I am very calm, and I will let people talk at me, and I know how to, show the right amount of interest to the right people to keep things moving. Bethany is the third parent. She's the oldest daughter. She's been the third parent for her whole life, and she's tired of being the third parent. And when I'm there, there's a little bit less pressure on her. And when I'm not there, all of the tension is coming down on her head, and she feels like she has to do something about it, right? Because she's the oldest. So it's also 1,000 miles, and we're not sure if she's going to make that trip either, because she's had a terrible semester. She's very tired and a little bit sick, and she would be leaving like Saturday or Sunday to drive 1,000 miles, probably just in one day, to be there for a few days and then drive 1,000 miles back. And then they go back to school on January 2nd. So almost her entire break is spent driving or adding stress on top of the stress she already has. So it's tough, right? It's she feels very guilty about the possibility of not going home, which is very reasonable. I don't begrudge it. But there are many downsides of going home. Again, not even to mention the possibility of weather being weird somewhere between here and Arkansas. So she may be here on Christmas. It would be worth it if she wanted to be there, right? And if flights were reasonably priced. I mean, she grew up in Little Rock, so yeah, she would be flying right, 20 minutes from her house, or possibly Memphis if it was cheaper. But there is a level of not wanting to go home that is also a factor. I'm going to go throw away my coffee filter, and I'll be right back. Right. I mean, there is that to factor in, although probably not. In terms of time, I'm sure, but in terms of gas, it'd probably be a couple $100 worth of gas, and then $50 to $100 worth of food. That's probably a one way. Right, that's probably so. It anyway. And again, she doesn't like. This is not. I worry about these things. I worry about like overly putting my thumb on the scale. But she does not really want to go home. That's not me. That's not me being practical. That's just knowing the situation. And it's not going to be a fun time for her. Her brother just got married last May. I guess like 6 months ago. No? Yeah, I guess it must have been this year. Anyway, they just got married. They're living in like Jonesboro, and they're not coming to Christmas because they're going to her family's. So, like, if they're not willing to figure out how to make at least part of Christmas Day work when you live an hour and a half away, it it's okay for us to not make it work when we're 1,000 miles away. But, it's not my family. Technically, it's my family, but it's not my family, right? These dynamics don't exist for me in the same way. I don't even have her brother's phone number. I think I have my sister's husband's phone number. I'm sure I do. I think I've texted him. Asked him what jazz records he doesn't have. But yeah, I really don't talk to anybody in my extended family. I don't know if that's normal, but I'm not normal, so it's hard to say. I mean, I don't know how many siblings or whatever your family Christmas like normally looked like, but as people grow up, get married, have second families that also have Christmas traditions, and you know, it just becomes harder to balance. It's harder to juggle. And I am on the spectrum. I'm probably not. I'm probably not. We don't think I am. I took the Rads R. There's a full spectrum in here, also. That is a weak joke, but yeah, like I don't know. It would explain some things certainly, if I was on the spectrum. Um, but it's very hard to tell how much of my behavior is like innate because that's just how I am, and how much of it is I was raised in a very specific way with very specific values, right? Because much of my behavior and the way I like operate in the world could be just like that's how I was raised and it makes sense. Um, so yeah, the thing is like I took the Rads R and I was scored in like the 60s, which is on the I don't know high end of normal as far as that goes, I think. So um, I don't think that that's the answer, but it would be very convenient if it was. It would explain some things. But what I am really is just very good with people who are on the spectrum. I just I just kind of sit back and let them go. We had a very exciting what that I took the Rads R like a year ago. We just looked it up. Bethany's brother has an official diagnosis. Um, yeah, well, they're highly comorbid, and Bethany's pretty confident that I have ADHD. And again, could be could be just the way that manifests in my life. Um, I don't know. I'm glad my parents didn't try to put me on Ritalin when I was 9 because a lot of times that happens to treat behavior as opposed to an underlying need, right? Bethany's family is really pretty heavily involved in the foster care system, and she's like 80% of the kids in foster care are on Ritalin, and it's because they are just keeping the kids like pacified for the most part. They're putting them on so much Adderall or Ritalin that they're not causing problems in the house. And I'm sure some of them genuinely have ADHD, but it seems to be like we can't put you in the closet anymore type type deal. But it would have been nice if I had gotten tested at like 14 or 15, right? But it's tough. I mean, I was a hugely active kid. And so, you know, I had a lot of energy and I played a lot of sports. And I could sit down and read a book start to finish. So, you know, I don't know that I exhibited the signs of like issues. But the older I get, the more I think maybe it would explain some of my like one, my constant stimming. Like I'm always tapping or something. Um, like annoyed the hell out of my mom. So your family friend is trying to figure out if the kid needs it is crazy, right? And so many people benefit from having an underlying need addressed that can take you from hating school and being considered, not capable to all of a sudden I can get my work done and I can remember to turn my work in when I finish it, and I'm capable of doing good work because I can sit and focus on it. I mean, Bethany's a high school teacher. She sees a lot of those sorts of things, including kids whose parents won't get them tested. Right. Not everybody needs Adderall, but people do need it. Adderall, etc. So, did you stop taking it in college because you couldn't get it or because you wanted to get off of it? I'm excited to get my union health care. Yeah, that's I would say a pretty common experience is like although it although it does, I mean, it's why bipolar people so often don't take their medication because being low sucks. Being in a depressive state, that sucks. You can't get out of bed, you don't want to do anything. But when you are up and manic, life is great. You feel powerful. You have so many, it's like being on cocaine. All of your ideas are good. Everything, and it's like, man, I'm going to I've never really thought about it, but I'm going to learn how to do fly fishing, and I'm going to learn how to fly ties, and I'm going to get a whole set of fly tying equipment, and I listen, maybe if it all goes well, maybe I will start my own fly tying business because, I feel like that'll fulfill me. right? And you are into it for a couple days while you're manic, and it's great, and you tie a million flies, and then you crash, right? But when you no longer have manic, when you no longer have access to the highs, it sucks. And so you stop taking it because, you know, you feel like you're being sort of dampened. Or it just like you have restless leg. You know, I know a lot of medications have really unpleasant side effects. People react to them differently. You know, if it doesn't make you want to be, you know, doing things, even though it makes you capable of doing them, it's easy to say I don't want this in my life. How are your grades at Harding? Mine were a steady decrease from freshman year. Just like barely graduated. My problem has never been ability. My problem has always been like desire and willingness. Interesting. I mean, the appetite suppressant, I'd say, is pretty common, right? Because I don't know much about Concerta specifically. I assume it's in the same family as Ritalin and Adderall and is a stimulant. And a lot of times, stimulants do make you not want to. There you go. That's that's the college experience. Um, I think I graduated with like a cumulative GPA of like 2.7, which is fine. I mean, it is far from what I would be capable of if I wanted to do the work, but it is, I guess it's okay. But my last like 30 or 40 hours probably had multiple F's and a couple W's. I was like I was not doing wonderfully. And I'm sure some of it was my own issues, you know, just like I didn't care about school. I didn't care about school when I got to school. I was good at school, but I didn't like it. I like learning, but I was very cynical about college when I was 19. And like this is going the whole point is to graduate and get a job. That's that's all that I don't have a passion. I don't have anything that I want to pursue. So I just need to get a degree that I can get a job with. Um, if I was to go back now, I'd probably go into history. Turns out I really enjoy history, but I didn't know that at the time, and also I didn't want to be a history teacher, which you can do other stuff with a history degree, but mostly it's teach, right? They're like research jobs, the university jobs. They are not they are not common uh, or easy to get as a new grad. So like I would have to teach seventh grade history or something, and I was not feeling that at 20. That's why I wasn't an English major, right? That would have been probably my most natural, um, my most natural direction would have probably been English. And I married one. Bethany was an English major. Um, but I didn't want to teach English. And the majority of jobs available are teaching if you graduate with a degree like that. I did not take a class with Julie Harris, but I took one with Kevin Klein that I really liked. He seems like a smart and weird guy. Um, Although, as is the case with basically every person that I knew in the church 20 years ago, 10 years ago, these opinions are all subject to refinement depending on how the Trump era has affected their brains. You know, I'm a lot more sympathetic to Mark Elrod than I was when I was a pretty conservative Republican. You know. Yeah, that's another one that's tough to do anything with other than teach it. And if you're not planning to teach it, I guess I hope you had an interesting time and learned some stuff. Because, like, truthfully, you know, I'm working at UPS now. I don't give a shit. I don't. Yeah, I would have been very, like, I never took a class with Elrod, but I was definitely like, he's a liberal, and we didn't we didn't do we didn't really cotton to liberals much when I was growing up. Okay. Yeah, I've thought about law, casually. My career counselor in high school said I should be a lawyer. After he got the wrong file and said I should be an architect. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? That's true. I, this is like a $300 thing that my mom did, and we went in to the career counselor the day. This story is all true. I just it's all true. I took the test, and the day of the appointment, it was in Indianapolis, about an hour and a half from our house. I'm up in the morning, and I hear this, like, a scream from my mom like I've never heard. And she came down the stairs, and that's when I found out my close friend in high school, and I guess middle school, David, had accidentally shot himself in the head the night before. Um, but we had to go to the career counselor. So, so I'm like, I'm still not really processing it because that's the first stage. Uh, we drive to Indy, go to the appointment. I walk in the room, pulls out a folder, and he's like, "Well, based on our results here, looking like you should, go into being an architect." I was like, "What are you talking about? I can't draw. I can't draw. I don't want to draw." And then he looked at the file and was like, "Oh, I have the wrong file. Dog, you got to do better than that." Anyway, yeah, and my friend was still dead when I got home. So, do you want to get into the nonprofit sector? I mean, is that something you would like to, like, work in as opposed to just sort of contribute to? Yeah, man, it sucked. I mean, he was being stupid, frankly. Not to be like he got what he deserved, because, he didn't. But he wasn't supposed to. He was in the National Guard, and he wasn't supposed to have handguns. I'm not sure if it's because he was too young. He was like a year older than me, a year and a half. So he was like 18 or 19. And I don't know if he wasn't supposed to have handguns legally or just until he was a certain age. Like, anyway, he had bought one. And they were house sitting, him and my friend Nick, who was 2 or 3 years younger than me. So 4 or 5 years younger than David. They were house sitting for these friends from church. And the story, as far as I understand it, is David was pretending he was going to shoot at the cat, and just sort of dry firing at it, which is a dick move. But he grew up with a family of dogs. But yeah, he was like dry firing at the cat, and said, basically, if that cat comes around here again, and then Nick had to answer a bunch of questions from the police at 3 in the morning as a 15-year-old. Well, I guess you could work at a church. Yeah. I have had a surprising number of friends die. I had a friend die in an avalanche. Like, from when we lived in Colorado the first time. Some people that my dad worked with, they had like 6 kids, and they had 3 of them that were right around my age. And 2 of them were out hiking in the mountains because they're from here. The brother is an Eagle Scout. So, they were like, yeah, listen, we know what we're doing. We've been out here for a while. Avalanche happened. She got buried in it, and he didn't. And he couldn't find her. And they had to wait till spring to recover her body. And, like, that happened when I was, like, 15. For somebody who didn't go to public school, I know a surprising amount of dead people my age. Yeah, it's just it's an unbelievable amount of power coming down. And you can survive under the snow for a while if you get kind of lucky. But that doesn't mean you will be there long enough for them to find you. Like, Nicholas got hurt. It wasn't, he looked for his sister, and he just couldn't find her. But he was also hurt. Terrible, terrible stuff. I had a friend at Harding die. She used to drive. Her dad was the new preacher at the church I grew up going to in Terre Haute. And so I would ride home with her, like freshman year. I think just freshman year. I think she left after my freshman year. But she, like, caught her apartment on fire. I think she had transferred from Harding. But her apartment, her laptop set her bed on fire. And she had been drinking and didn't wake up before the smoke inhalation got her. So, I have had friends die in gnarly ways. A girl I thought was very attractive growing up OD'd. People at Harding tend to die in accidents, going home or going on trips. There was somebody named Ty, I remember. Apparently Harrison. I was thinking of a different Harrison, I think. Yeah, Ty Osmond. Apparently I'd played basketball with him, but I didn't know who he was, really. But did you know Harrison Udaly? He's like the smartest dude I know. He blew me away with how sharp he was. And he was so burned out that he became a ski instructor for a while and is now a scuba instructor in like Bali or something. I think he was going into neurobiology. Like, I think that was his career path. And he ended up being like, oh yeah, Harrison Waldron. Another one I didn't know because I was, much as I should have been, like, tightly connected to Knights, I wasn't. I barely knew anybody in Knights. I knew Shannon. That's the only person I knew in Knights, really. Um, but yeah, both of them obviously still makes me mad to think about it. I didn't I didn't hear about the girl getting hit by a cop. But I found out another person. I don't know if you ever get this urge. Every once in a while, I just think, man, I never really figured out what happened to so and so. Maybe we weren't really friends after sophomore or junior year or something. Oh, damn. She probably got booked for damaging a vehicle. Um, but like every once in a while, I'll just think, I wonder what happened to this person. And there's a dude that I went to honors abroad with. So he went to honors symposium, but he wasn't in my session. But the next summer, there's a trip to Greece. And we were on that trip for 2 weeks. And again, look, I'm confident. You could say arrogant. Many have about my own intellectual abilities. You know, I know I am pretty smart, but there are still people where I'm just like I am intimidated, and he was one of those guys. Like rich, took 6 years of Latin in school, good hair, good like dressed well, clearly had like money in the family. He ended up in TNT, was very popular. Um, Found out, I looked him up, found out he killed himself a few years back um, because he had been sexually abused as a kid. And again, like, in fairness to him, I'm not saying he should have dealt with it, but like, never really was able to deal with that. Um, I was like, man. There's Lindsay Tyler. I don't know if you remember LT. Big black dude with a cowboy hat, very gregarious. He got something weird. He just maybe diabetes got, I don't remember, but he got something that put him in the hospital, and he just like steadily deteriorated. It's like 25. Yeah, I would say anybody that struggles with being abused as a child has every right to struggle with that. Um, that is a horrible thing to happen to anybody. Even bad people. It's a horrible thing if it happened to them, right? Like, you still are then responsible for your own actions, but you can't discount the impact of trauma. It's crazy. Um, Bethany, you know, Bethany is even more woke than I am. And one of the things she has mentioned is like, you should plan on being disabled. And the way I'm gonna pivot into politics momentarily. I think our president and RFK Jr. actively despise disabled people. Like, I don't think it's unintentional consequences of some other, like, either stupid or venal ideas. I think they do not like disabled people and they don't want them around. And you are so much more likely to become disabled. You know, one of Bethany's friends in college got something, they don't know what it was, but for like a year he wasn't able to walk. And then it went away and he could walk again. But like, you could get any sort of illness or disease that affects your ability to operate, 100%. Or you could be hit by a car. You could get an infection and lose a limb. Like, there are so many bad things that could happen to you that don't kill you, but make your life way harder. And it's crazy that people don't think we should make a world that's easier for people with disabilities to navigate, because nobody thinks they will become disabled. And like, there's a really good chance you will be. And they're fighting in court to say that they don't need a translator, like an ASL translator or interpreter, during Trump's speeches, because the president needs to be able to control his message or something, which is like, all right, we have a ramp which both people who can walk can use and people who need wheelchairs can use. So everybody can use this ramp, and it already exists at the we already have it. We didn't even have to pay for it. It's already there. We're going to tear it up and put in some steps just so that wheelchair people are fucked. Like, that's the equivalent of fighting to remove an ASL interpreter. How much do you think that person's getting paid? Right? What tenth, hundredth, thousandth of a percent of the governmental budget do you think is going to the one person, maybe two people, who are providing ASL services for people who are deaf? I'm sure the savings justify it. But like, what can you say? They're fighting in court against the ADA, against the whatever the largest deaf advocacy group is. Why would you fight that? Unless you don't want deaf people to have access. It's ridiculous. Anyway. So that, man. I don't understand the thirst for cruelty to just like very vulnerable people. Jesus Christ.